Boker Tov, I hope we all had a beautiful and meaningful Sukkot, and we are back now with the daily halakha, Bezrat Hashem. And over the past few months, we've been discussing many different aspects of the Moadim. We've discussed the halachot of Yom Tov itself, the halachot of the second day Yom Tov, and travelers. And in the last month, we've been talking about halachot of Chol HaMoed. And although we're just on the back of Chol HaMoed, we'll end this topic and then begin a new topic, B'ezrat Hashem. And so let's continue with halachot of Chol HaMoed over the next few weeks and then begin a new subject. Now, we've so far seen in the halachot of Chol HaMoed, we've seen the principle of what's permissible or asur on Chol HaMoed, whether it's doraita or dorabanan. We've talked about for food, for a person's body, and the major distinction between melechet uman and melechet hediot, which, to recap very briefly, is melechet uman is a professional activity which is generally asur on Yom Tov, unless there's certain aspects when it's permissible, like for food or for other things we're going to see. And melechet hediot, which is a regular activity, which is not professional, which is permissible for the purposes of Yom Tov. And we saw all of this play out with writing on Chol HaMoed and cleaning the house on Chol HaMoed and other such activities on Chol HaMoed. Now, with regards to cutting hair or shaving, having a haircut and having a shave on Chol HaMoed, based on all the principles which we've learned, it should be permissible for a person to have a haircut on Chol HaMoed and to shave. The reason being is because we've learned that anything which is for tzorech haguf, anything which is for a person's bodily integrity, is permissible on Chol HaMoed, even if it's melechet uman. So even if we consider having a haircut as being melechet uman, which is not so clear whether it's a professional activity or not, but let's assume it is, even if it's a melechet uman, even if it's a professional activity, still, it's for bodily integrity, and therefore it should be permissible to be able to have a haircut and to shave on Chol HaMoed. However, the Mishnah tells us, the Hachamim said that it's forbidden to have a haircut on Chol HaMoed. The reason being is because they were concerned, the Hachamim, that if we allow people to have haircuts on Chol HaMoed, you're busy before the Moed, you don't have time to have one. And so what you'll do is you'll postpone your appointment, you'll postpone your visit to the haircut to be able to do it in Chol HaMoed. In Chol HaMoed, we're off work, we've got more time, and so it's something which is permissible to do in Chol HaMoed. It's for the body, and so I'll leave it to Chol HaMoed, and therefore that's going to take away from the Simchat HaChag, because people are going to postpone it, and therefore the Hachamim said that it is forbidden for a person to have a haircut on Chol HaMoed. That's clear, and that was certainly the halakha. The Mishnah does say that a person who comes from a journey on Chol HaMoed is allowed to. And the reason being is because you didn't have an opportunity to do so before the Moed. You were traveling, you arrived home just before the Moed, you arrived home on Chol HaMoed, you didn't have a chance, so you were allowed to. That doesn't apply nowadays, because nowadays journeys aren't so long. Where this would be applicable specifically this year, I was thinking, was with the release of the hostages on Monday, Hoshana Rabbah, last week it was. And that they would be allowed to have a haircut on Chol HaMoed, on Hoshana Rabbah, on Erev Shemini Atzeret. The reason being is because they didn't have an opportunity to do so before. And so that clearly falls into the scope of what the Hachamim said, that this is permissible to have a haircut because you've been out, you haven't been able to do so. Hachamim only said that we don't allow regular people to have a haircut on Chol HaMoed, so they don't end up postponing it. But here we didn't have an opportunity to do so before, then certainly you could do so. Now this only applies to having a haircut or a shave on the face. It doesn't apply to cutting hair over a person's body. The person has specific areas of the hair a person needs to cut, that is permissible. Now the two questions with this is firstly nowadays in which people, the whole reason the Hachamim said not to is so that you end up doing it before the Moed. But nowadays where people shave every day, is there room to say that since I shaved before the Chag and I came in clean and I came in looking good, and now I am doing it again to look good for the second part of the Chag? Is that permissible? And secondly, with regards to halakha or upsherin, where people have cut the child's hair, is that permissible on Chol HaMoed? That B'ezrat Hashem will discuss the next.